Michelle, do you have any thoughts for where to get started with digital ministry strategy? It seems like people have trouble finding, like, what do they do first, especially if they haven't walked into this realm before.
I like the saying, begin with the end in mind and think of your goals and what are you hoping to accomplish, if that's a possibility for your community. If you're at a point where if you know your goals at that point.
Yeah, I'm wondering like what kind of goals people might have. Because I think the metrics can get in your head sometimes. You're like, oh, our goal is to have 100 people follow us on Facebook in the first X amount of weeks. Like people want those like vanity metrics, but where should their mind really be for goals? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I wasn't thinking goals as like so quantifiable, but more quality goals. You want to reach out to youth in your area. You want to reach out to families in your area.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to do that? Where are they online so that you can reach them? Just much more of a broader context in terms of goals. And certainly knowing your mission and knowing your why and who you are as a community, key to doing any endeavor, online or offline.
Okay, so people are supposed to focus on just reaching their people where they are. So I can imagine, I'm just like playing devil's advocate here in my own brain and thinking of the ministry leader on the other end of this call saying, how do I figure out where my people are? Like, I don't know. And my answer, and I'll give my answer, you can tell me if you have other things in mind, is first of all, asking them, like just being like, where do you spend time online? And even the survey, I'm a big fan of like the Google Forms surveys because you can make it anonymous. Just fill in the buttons that you want, and then you have like percentages of your people that spend time on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, because I would hate for people to be investing too much time on something that their people aren't even on.
Right. You have to know where they are to begin with. Yeah. But that brings up the other kind of factor here. What if they're not your people yet? How do you reach them?
That's a good question. I feel like that question comes to me a lot. I don't know about you, but ministry leaders are saying like, okay, we want to reach, just like you said, that's our goal. Our goal is to reach millennials or Gen Z, teenagers, whatever, youth online. So what does that look like? And I think that brings me to one of the thoughts I had about where to get started that you need to consider before you're even like making content online is how are people like not funneling in, but like what's the path in to connect with your community, and what's that like end experience look like? Like, for example, are you okay if you're trying to reach youth, so you start making TikToks, you start connecting with youth, great. Are you okay if they're never coming to your church in person? Mm-hmm. Are you okay if they never show up for, like, maybe you do worship on TikTok live and that's really cool and great, but what if they never show up for that? Are you okay if they just, how else can they be connected to you in a way that you're excited about and you can celebrate?
It's really dependent on the individual ministry, right?
Yeah.
It's better to reach them. I think it's better to reach out in some way, have some connection,
right,
than nothing at all. If they never walk through your door, so be it. At least they're hearing from you in some way.
Yeah, it's almost like a different method of vanity metrics. I think a lot of leaders being like wanting people in person, or even like wanting to be able to say, oh, I had 10 people on my TikTok live, like, or 1,000, whatever the number is for them. But to like open your mind up to other ways that people can connect, like you just said. I think people need to be open for that, with that. And when they're getting started with digital ministry, I would say, like, consider what counts for you, what you're going to celebrate.
Sure.
And that whole, like, that path in, where does it lead, and where are you okay with it leading, even if it's not in person or coming to worship all the time, because I don't think it always ends up that way, but we can still celebrate the other connections.
That's right. And digital ministry in and of itself, Sammy, is just that. digital. It never has to be in person, right? It's that, oh my gosh, that connection we're making online. It's a whole new world out here.
Yeah. What other ideas do you have for ways people can get started with digital ministry?
Well, my head is in the website area.
Yes.
That's where I go first, but understand that could be a really big, daunting project for churches and organizations at first. Google My Business. Start with a Google My Business page. That's almost like a little mini website. You get to put some pictures about your location, your worship times, very minimal information about you, just so you can be found through Google, the biggest search engine out there. So if you're doing nothing at all with a website, at least have a Google My Business page. Very simple, free, not a big effort at all. Then you build on that, right? Then you do a Facebook page and link to your Google My Business, or vice versa. Right. So just start linking all those together. So build the pieces and then integrate them into one whole picture of your digital community.
I love that. I love that that's tangible, because I feel like often when we're like talking about getting started with digital ministry, it's like, oh, like find where your people are, engage with them. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like practically, what does that look like? But when you say, make a Google My Business account and like connect your church up and then people can find you easier. Like it is a thing that could be completed. You could do it tomorrow. It might take, a week or two to get it all set up, but good tip. Thank you.
Tangible. Like it. Action items. I'm all about action items.
Yeah. Let me see if I have any actions here. Ooh, here's one. Here's one that I had. I was thinking about, you're getting started, you're maybe considering new platforms, whether you're trying to reach your people or new people. I think there's a commitment level that needs to be considered. I would recommend that if you're going on a platform and you're saying, this is what we're going to do to try to reach people, you give yourself like 6 months. I don't know. You can argue 3 months, a certain amount of time where you're saying like, we're going to invest in this and just do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you need to give time to see any kind of fruit. And I think with that 3 or 6 month commitment time, maybe it's a year, being present, being present on that platform and learning that platform, because I could speak from experience with DIGI sometimes, like you can't be everywhere all at once. And you don't want to like say, hey, we're going to venture into this new platform and then ghost people is the term. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. Okay.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, cool. And so I was thinking about like churches that are like, oh, okay, we're going to invest time in TikTok. And then they make like 4 TikToks. And then they're like, okay, well, we tried it. It didn't work. If you're going to be present on this platform, it needs to be consistent. It needs to be longer term. And it needs to be, some people need to know that they can find you there. You need to be showing up.
Right. Consistency is key, and being repetitive, and just keep showing up, because people aren't going to remember the first time or maybe even the second time they see it. But it takes repetition to get your messages in front of people, to keep seeing them. And sure, I know we live in a instant gratification kind of world right now, not so on social media, and certainly not with the algorithms, the way they work. You have to invest in time and be willing to commit to it, for sure. For I would say at least 6 months. I like that time frame.
With that like time commitment, I just want to recognize that ministry leaders have a lot going on, and we know that. And so sometimes when we talk about like committing time into something, it can be like slash and or money into something. Like if you cannot add this to your plate, and first of all, you can try to get some volunteers, some other people in on this. But if you don't have that capability, we're going to talk about volunteers in another video, working with volunteers and limited volunteers. But you might need to pay someone, whether that's like hiring someone, contracting someone temporarily, or like, using someone offline on Fiverr, or finding a friend of a friend, and, just investing some money into that to make it possible. Not that you have to do it that way. But I just think it's not easy for ministry leaders to throw up their hands, but like it can happen where you're just like, we can't do this. And then, yeah, that might be because it's a staff position or not even staff position. It's a big job that, your volunteers might not be able to handle, in which case are you willing to invest money in it? That was like a weird rant, but I just wanted to call attention to that.
But and as we say, again, digital ministry is ministry. So for whatever you put resources into your children's ministries, your music ministries,
true.
It's the same thing, just another way to reach people. And I like what you said about showing up. That's important too. So it's not just if we build it, they will come sort of thing. You have to interact, you have to comment, and keep sharing, be consistent, and show up, and let people know that you're out there. You put this platform, whatever it is, this website, Facebook page out there, and you're telling them about you, but maybe you let them give them the opportunity to tell you about them and where they could use your help, or where they need some guidance, some prayer, some healing, just to be open to not just here's what's going on in our church this week, but what can we do for you? How can we help? How can we pray for you this week?
Right. Yeah, I think that connects well with another point I wanted to bring up, which was measuring. And you love talking about analytics, Michelle.
I do.
And just encouraging, and it doesn't have to be like complicated, like diving into like graphs and everything. It can be, but just paying attention to what is working and doing more of that, and paying attention to what's not working and doing less of that. Not that you need to not do any of the stuff that's not working. Maybe, you advertise for something that you feel is very important to keep in there, and you say, we get 10% of the interactions and engagement on those posts, but we want to keep those. Okay, well, don't make your whole feed those posts. What kind of posts, what kind of content is doing well? Maybe you did a one-off video once and you noticed, wow, that got all the interaction in the world. Can you incorporate that into what you're doing more? And I think the numbers likely will reflect what you were talking about, as far as it's not a bulletin board. It's, what do people want? What do they need? Well, let the numbers tell you. You can ask them, but you can also let the engagement numbers kind of tell you. It's helpful for for leaders to think about not only what are the ways that people will engage with you, but how can you invest in creating more opportunities for digital only connection, whether that's like showing up on Zoom for like office hours, or Facebook groups, I think can be really big, or like, have those groups somewhere else, Marco Polo, on Zoom, I don't care, wherever your people want to show up. Also thinking about like the email list, just getting people on that. When you're sending out emails, are there ways for digital only people, to engage with your community? Like, can you think of a way they can serve somehow? Can you think of a way they can be involved? Like, if you are trying to reach people through social media and you're trying to get people that might never come into your building, are there ways for them to eventually be connected to your community, like, fully? I think that's really important.
Sure. And it's a whole new world of a whole new perspective, right? Because faith leaders have not had to think about these things before. So it's going to take it's a learning curve, and take some creativity for sure. But we have so many tools and options available technologically that with a little help from folks like us, maybe they'll get there.
Woohoo! Cool.
Okay, what kind of tangible ways do you think we could offer up that would help folks get to know a community?
As always, I want to like disclaimer it with, don't invest time and energy into platforms that your people aren't on, or like, if you're just trying to reach people anywhere on the internet, you don't care if it's your people or not, that's fine. But it's good to start where your people are. It's hard to be on all the platforms, and you want to focus where your people are spending time. That being said, I would say a good thing that a lot of ministries, a lot of faith-based like churches, worshiping communities want to do is like, we want our worship services to be available for people, even if they can't attend in person, or even if they can't come at a certain time. So great. make a YouTube channel, fill out all the information in your YouTube channel. How many YouTube channels have I seen where it's like a name and that's it, and they start posting videos? Okay, there are a lot of areas for you to fill in as far as details, website links, pictures, like fill it out. Post your services there. Post the whole thing there if you want. Cut off the beginning and end if it's like really long intro, outro, but post the whole thing. Then, if you're able, use a free editor, a free editing platform to just cut out important sections. And I would say post those on Facebook. I mean, I can't promise your people are on Facebook, but a lot of people are on Facebook, and it's a good platform to start with. So I would say don't necessarily post the whole service on Facebook, but take chunks of it. Take the sermon. Sure. Take a special moment, the baptism that happens in worship. Take things, take as many things as you can. Like, you're kind of creating like this content tree. I guess that's not a tree. It's a root system. This way. You're creating a lot of little content.
That's tree.
This is tree? I feel like this is a tree. I don't know. You're creating lots of little content. Yes, a Christmas tree from your content. And Facebook's just the beginning. From there, you can go farther if you want to go farther, if your people are farther. Instagram, quotes. I mean, how many posts have we made with tips? How many videos have we made with tips on how to do this? Repurposing your sermon content, particularly, can be done in image posts, in short videos that you post, in reels, in TikToks, stories. Now, again, don't go everywhere, but these are some options, things to keep in mind. And speaking of video, while we're talking about that, another good step is to make a welcome video. And we've talked about this a couple times. 2 minutes of you, maybe your other staff, your other leaders, just talking about what your community is, what the mission is. Why do you exist? Not just like, hey, we'd love for you to come join us. Like, keep the pew warm, or tune in on Facebook Live so we can feel happy about having another person watch. No, like, what do you do as a community, and why should they care? And how, even if they never show up, can they be involved with what's going on? That kind of welcome video can show up and hang out on your Instagram highlights. It can be pinned on the top of your Facebook page. It can be on your website. There's a lot of places that it can live. Only if Michele says it's okay that it can stay on the website. Is that okay?
Website is a great place for a welcome video, yes.
Great. Lots of places where people can go to get to know you and, change it up. Maybe once a season, once every 6 months, whatever you can handle. It's a good way for people to share who the community is too. Yeah. Lots of tangibles.
Yeah.
Did I miss any?
Well, what we were talking about a while ago, maybe we'll circle back with that. Go where your people are. You can find out by asking them, but if they're not your people yet, where do you find them? And there are I guess we would say statistically, demographically, certain social platforms appeal to certain demographics, right? Facebook has your 40 and older, Instagram has your millennials, TikTok has your Gen Z. Gen Z, is that the generation? I don't know. But each platform kind of has a majority of its users in a specific demographic. So if you're looking for, to promote your VBS or your children's things, maybe you're going to go to Instagram or to look for the parents of those kids who might be looking for some services, some activities for their kids for the summer. So just because they're not your people yet, kind of where they hang out by the demographics that the social platforms publish.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually was an interesting comment because my brain immediately said no, because I'm not over 40 and I'm on Facebook. And do you know how many older TikTokers I follow, like that I've seen that are making content, and like my parents are on TikTok. Like,
I'm on TikTok.
Yeah, the platforms are bigger than. I mean, I know what you're saying. It's like it's a lot of one generation for each of these things. But I also was wondering when you were saying that, and maybe this isn't a good tip, but this is just something to consider, that perhaps people in different generations use the platforms differently and focus on different things. Instagram these days has a lot of features, which makes it kind of overwhelming for someone new coming onto it. You have posts, you have highlights, you have stories, you have Instagram TV, which I think they're changing all the Instagram video things right now. Hashtags, like there's all these different ways to connect to people and to things. And I think if you logged on Instagram right now, you'd probably use it differently than I would. And I pretty sure I can say that Gen Z folks on TikTok are looking at different kinds of content that even I would look at than definitely people 40 and over would look at. And I think that's really interesting. And I don't have any good advice for, how to target specific generations on specific platforms, other than asking people in those generations. Well,
so here's a scenario.
Yeah.
I'm Pastor Kathy.
Hi.
Hi. I have a Lutheran congregation in the middle of Pennsylvania, and we know we need to get online, but we don't know what to do. We have quite older folks in the congregation, but we know there are a lot of young families in the area because there are building developments around us.
I like the accent.
So how do I get started in digital ministry?
Are you going to answer yourself, Pastor Kathy? Or are you asking me?
I'm coming to the experts, the Digivangelism experts.
Let me call Michelle quick.
No.
Well, I think we've provided a lot of thoughts, a lot of tips, and I would suggest starting somewhere. I know that seems very but there are so many. Obviously, we just listed a ton of ways to get started. You've got the Google My Business, you've got the trying out the different platforms, asking people where they're spending time, making a welcome video, making sure your website is good and up to date, filling out your YouTube channel, putting your services up there. Like, there are so many options. I think people can get overwhelmed easily. Analysis paralysis, that's an easy state to find yourself in. I would say kind of survey these options, understand what's out there, set some goals, and just start somewhere. Just start taking steps and pushing yourself, further and further into interacting with people in this digital realm, and not like overdoing it either. Not trying to do all the platforms at once, or trying to, switch your schedule to 40 hours a week social media, 2 hours a week non-social media. Like, you can't do that. So what can you do? Maybe it's saying, okay, I'm going to invest 5-10 hours a week of my ministry time into this, and some other things need to fall away because this is something we're prioritizing now, or we're going to hire someone to help us out with this. Like, start somewhere. Don't just watch this video and let it be the end. Pastor Kathy.
Oh.
Is that okay? Is that good?
Thanks, Sammy. Pastor Kathy wants to say, follow Digivangelism. They're the tops.
You heard the pastor. Preach, preacher.